We're getting new video from a family of a New York man who died after being arrested by police. It shows the confrontation. CBC News has not seen all of that video. We will not be airing it right now, but the Associated Press says it shows Daniel Prude, who is black, being put into a hood and having his face pressed into the pavement for 2 minutes. CBC's Natasha Fatah is on the story. This happened, Natasha, back in March, if I recall. Timing, what else are you finding out?
Well, the reason we're discussing it now, Suhana, is because the family had requested that the body cam footage from the police officers be released, and that has been released now to those who would be interested in it. Now, we should warn, as you just did, that CBC News has not seen all of the video, and we're choosing not to air it now, but we do have more details leading up to Prude's death. Now, Daniel Prude, originally from Chicago, was visiting his family in Rochester in March. And on March 22nd at around 7 p.m., the police were called because reportedly Prude was having suicidal thoughts and he needed a mental health evaluation. So he was taken to the hospital, and according to his family, the hospital only held on to him, evaluated him for a couple of hours, and then he was back home. But then several hours later, at 3 in the morning, the police were once again called in because Daniel had left that family's home. And when they located him on a residential street, he was naked and somewhat incoherent. So the police apprehended him. He was screaming, but he did, according to the video and according to the Associated Press, submit to the police. They did put him in handcuffs, and they did put a spit hood over his head. Now, that is to prevent saliva from a suspect or a person being arrested getting onto the police. And keep in mind that this is March, at the height of the pandemic in New York State. So the police do that, and there is, we understand, a degree of struggle. So Prude is pushed down, his head to the pavement for 2 minutes, and he's screaming at the police, and he says, "Are you trying to kill me?" He says, "I want your gun." So there's clearly stressful anxiety in that situation. And then the police say, "Hey, are you okay? Are you okay?" Because he stops moving, he stops speaking, there's liquid coming out of his mouth. And so then the ambulance arrives. And on that video, again, according to the Associated Press, medics are seen performing CPR on Prude. He's taken to the hospital, but then 7 days later, he is dead, and the cause of death is asphyxiation. So now the concern is, well, what did the police do, and what could have done better in order to make sure that this man did not lose his life? That is the allegation coming forward. That is a request for information coming forward. And so as a result, there needs to be an investigation. But the mayor of Rochester says it's sort of out of his hands. He's empathetic with the family, but it's no longer up to him or his police department. Let's have a listen to the mayor.
Once Mr. Prude passed away, the Rochester Police Department turned the case over to the Attorney General's office. And since that time, we have been waiting for the AG's office to make a determination on how this case is to proceed.
So that's the concern, that there hasn't been much moving forward on this case since March. So the family's hoping something might change now.
And what's the family asking for, Natasha?
Well, primarily answers, and they want some justice. They want an explanation. And what anybody would want is some sense of clarity as to why someone who was in a mental health distress situation ends up dying a week later after having the police intervene in their case. So they held a press conference yesterday. Let's have a listen to what the family had to say.
I placed a phone call for my brother to get help, not for my brother to get lynched. How many more brothers got to die for society to understand that this needs to stop? And I can't even share with y'all the pain that I'm feeling and my family is going through as well.
So, Suhana, there was an examination done by the medical examiner on Prude after he had died. And here's what the medical examiner found and concluded: that this was a homicide caused by complications of asphyxia in the settling of physical restraint, and that the report listed excited delirium and acute intoxicant, PCP, as contributing factors to his death. So there is a double factor here of substances in his body, but as well the issue of the restraint from the police and that asphyxia. So there have been previous concerns about using these spit hoods on people, how much it can restrict a person's ability to breathe, especially if they're in a heightened delirium state. So activists are saying that the officers need to be named, they need to be fired, and that there needs to be a criminal investigation, that someone should face charges. But at this stage, the Attorney General has not made it clear which way they're moving.
We'll talk again. Thank you, Natasha. CBC's Natasha Fattah in Toronto.